Okay. Oh. Okay, friends, today, yeah. Okay, I'm just going to mute everyone for a moment as we begin. Okay, Mrs. Ranganathan also I'm muting. And then while speaking, when I ask question, you unmute and start talking because I will not be able to hear you otherwise. Okay. Okay, maybe Sanu, I will make you co-host and you can control. Okay, yeah. Okay, here it goes. Okay, friends, today I welcome you to this very, very interesting and very important topic of justice, which is very important for us to meditate upon as we are already in the season of Advent where we remember the second coming of Christ. And, of course, acknowledging the first coming of Christ, we also remember the second coming of Christ. So this is a very important topic for us to meditate upon. Yeah. So I think so this is again by Tim Mackey, his team, the Bible Project team, and it's a very beautiful topic. So all credit to them. They have the copyrights for this, and this is just for simple education purpose for Christians without any commercial benefit out of it. Okay. So yeah, we'll be listening to his video and then his podcast first on this subject. And then we will just, any thoughts that come to your mind, please quickly share because we have a lot to cover. Okay. So here I'm playing this for you now.
Hey everyone, this is Tim at the Bible Project. As the weeks of this COVID-19 pandemic turn into months, the resulting economic crisis is seizing every country in our world. The United States, where I live, has now passed multiple economic relief bills amounting to trillions of dollars aimed at keeping businesses, whole industries afloat right now. As of this recording, some 26 million people have filed for unemployment or lost their jobs in the last 6 weeks. And if you've been following the news, you know that the majority of those jobs belong to middle and lower income earners in America, people working in food, transportation, or service industries. Not everyone has the privilege of being able to have a job where they can work from home. And this is nothing new. Throughout the long history of human wars and pandemics and economic crises, the people who suffer most are those who are already economically vulnerable, often for reasons beyond their own control. And this was true also in the times of the Bible. This is why in the Old Testament laws that God gave to the people of Israel, there was so much focus on making sure everyone had access to employment and to food, so much focus on vulnerable people, making sure that they're taken care of. Moses and the prophets talk so much about how Israelites were to care for the immigrants and widows and orphans and the poor in their communities. And all of this is rooted in the biblical belief that every human is an image of God and therefore has sacred dignity and value regardless of social and economic status. And this is surely why, when Jesus began his mission of announcing the arrival of God's kingdom, he went first to the poor and to the sick. Jesus shared God's heartbeat for people who didn't know where their next paycheck or their next meal might come from. And so this concern, this has always been at the heart of the movement that Jesus started. In the book of Acts, justice and generosity were core values of Jesus' earliest followers. And James, the early Christian leader who wrote one of the New Testament letters, he said that genuine devotion to God is directly expressed by how aware I am of the needs of vulnerable people in my community. And so I'm like you. When I read headlines about trillion-dollar relief packages and millions of lost jobs, it's overwhelming. Everything about this COVID-19 pandemic is overwhelming. And so let's just make it very simple and practical. You almost certainly know someone who has lost their job or taken a financial hit in the last month. And maybe that someone is you. And so what if you were to check in with your friends and reach out to them for help or offer help to them? Maybe somebody needs groceries. Maybe you or someone you know needs help with rent or their mortgage. Another idea is to just find out what are the local food pantries around you. Find out what they're up to and what they need and support them if you're able to. Nothing about the situation is business as usual. And so followers of Jesus have a very unique opportunity to display honesty, courage, and to display the generous justice of God himself in very powerful and practical ways right now. And so may God give us that courage and grace to love our neighbors as ourselves in the week that lay ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Now, any thoughts on this? Any quick thoughts on this, on what you heard? Yeah. Anything to share on this subject that you just now? What you heard? Any quick reaction? Anything comes to your mind before we move to the video from what you heard? Yeah. Okay. If you're speaking by any chance, your mic is muted, so I cannot see you, and I will not be able to hear. Okay. Fine. Yeah. All right. We'll move to the video, and then again, I'll ask you for your reactions, if there are any.
If you were a praying mantis, it would be socially acceptable to devour your mate.
And if you're a honey badger, you have no regard for other animals. You don't care.
If you're a panda with twins, it's normal to abandon one to take care of the other.
But if humans do any of these things, we would call it wrong, unfair, or unjust.
Yeah, why is that? Why do humans care so much about justice?
Well, the Bible has a fascinating response to that question. On page 1, humans are set apart from all other creatures as the image of God.
Yeah, God's representatives who rule the world by his definition of good and evil.
And this identity, it's the bedrock of the Bible's view of justice. All humans are equal before God and have the right to be treated with dignity and fairness no matter who you are.
And that would be nice if we all did that. But we know how the world really works.
And the Bible addresses that too. It shows how we are constantly redefining good and evil to our own advantage at the expense of others.
Yeah, self-preservation. And the weaker someone is, the easier it is to take advantage of them.
And so in the biblical story, we see this happening on a personal level, but also in families, and then in communities, and in whole civilizations that create injustice, especially towards the vulnerable. But the story doesn't end there. Out of this whole mess, God chose a man named Abraham to start a new kind of family. Specifically, Abraham was to teach his family to keep the way of the Lord by doing righteousness and justice.
Yeah, doing righteousness, that's a Bible word I don't really use, but what comes to mind is being a good person.
But what does that even mean, being good? The biblical Hebrew word for righteousness is tzedakah, and it's more specific. It's an ethical standard that refers to right relationships between people. It's about treating others as the image of God,
with the God-given dignity they deserve.
And this word justice, it's the Hebrew word mishpat. It can refer to retributive justice.
Like if I steal something, I pay the consequences.
Exactly. Yet most often in the Bible, mishpat refers to restorative justice. It means going a step further, actually seeking out vulnerable people who are being taken advantage of and helping them.
Yeah, some people call this charity.
But mishpat involves way more. It means taking steps to advocate for the vulnerable and changing social structures to prevent injustice.
So justice and righteousness are about a radical, selfless way of life.
Yeah, and you find this idea all over the Bible. Like here, in the book of Proverbs, what does it mean to bring about just righteousness?
Open your mouth for those who can't speak for themselves.
And what do these words mean for the prophets, like Jeremiah?
Rescue the disadvantaged, and don't tolerate oppression or violence against the immigrant, the orphan, and the widow.
And like here, look in the book of Psalms.
The Lord God upholds justice for the oppressed, gives food to the hungry, and sets the prisoner free. But he thwarts the way of the wicked. Whoa, he thwarts the wicked?
Yeah, in Hebrew, the word wicked is rasha. It means guilty or in the wrong. It refers to someone who mistreats another human, ignoring their dignity as an image of God.
So justice and righteousness is a big deal to God.
Yes, it's what Abraham's family, the Israelites, were to be all about. They ended up as immigrant slaves, being oppressed unjustly in Egypt. And so God confronted Egypt's evil, declaring them to be rasha, guilty of injustice. And so he rescued Israel. But the tragic irony of the Old Testament story is that these redeemed people went on to commit the same acts of injustice against the vulnerable. And so God sent prophets who declared Israel guilty.
But they weren't the only ones. There's injustice everywhere.
Yeah, some people actively perpetrate injustice. Others receive benefits or privileges from unjust social structures they take for granted. And sadly, history has shown that when the oppressed gain power, they often become oppressors themselves.
So we all participate in injustice, actively or passively, even unintentionally. We're all the guilty ones.
And so this is the surprising message of the biblical story. God's response to humanity's legacy of injustice is to give us a gift, the life of Jesus. He did righteousness and justice, and yet he died on behalf of the guilty. But then God declared Jesus to be the righteous one when he rose from the dead. And so now Jesus offers his life to the guilty so that they too can be declared righteous before God, not because of anything they've done, but because of what Jesus did for them.
The earliest followers of Jesus experienced this righteousness from God, not just as a new status, but as a power that changed their lives and compelled them to act in surprising new ways.
Yeah, if God declared someone righteous when they didn't deserve it, the only reasonable response is to go and seek righteousness and justice for others.
This is a radical way of life, and it's not always convenient or easy. It's courageously making other people's problems my problems.
This is what Jesus meant by loving your neighbor as yourself. It's about a lifetime commitment fueled by the words of the ancient prophet Micah. God has told you, humans, what is good, and what the Lord requires of you is to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God.
Okay. Yes. Now, any thoughts on this video? Anything that struck you from this video before we go into the Bible study and on anything? No?
We have to
Yeah, Mrs. Jacob.
Help to each other, and Jesus Christ came and means that commandment, love thy neighbor.
Okay. Yes.
Then equality.
Okay. Yes. All right. Thank you. Yeah, Mary, you say.
yeah say like somewhat similar to what Auntie is saying, that like what we have received, that we have to give. Like if we have been accepted generously by God, then we have to show that same
Correct.
to the other people.
Okay.
It's
Yes.
like a calling. Basically, it's a calling that it's like difficult, but it's a
Yes.
calling.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah, also God has
Yeah.
given justice for everybody the same.
Correct.
All people are the equal before God.
Yes. Yes.
Whether they are poor or they are rich are the same. So the justice and the righteousness, what he was saying, that I could not get it. Justice and
Yeah.
righteousness.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
both
Right.
together.
Yeah. Righteousness would basically mean living in a right relationship with everyone.
With everyone.
With all mankind, and justice would basically mean retributive justice, which is punishing, but it's also restorative justice, which means to restore what is lost. So if
Yeah.
a person has been made unjustly poor, you have to give him back what belongs to him. So that's
Yes.
restoring back that kind of, yeah. All right. So thank you so much for your reaction. Anyone else is there? Okay. Yeah. All right. We'll go to the video. We'll go to the questions now. Sorry, the Bible passage, and then we can again discuss. Okay.
Hmm.
So let's look at this Bible passage today. Is Deuteronomy chapter 24, verses 17 to 22. You shall not pervert the justice due an alien or an orphan, nor take a widow's garments in pledge. But you shall remember that you were a slave in Egypt, and that the Lord your God redeemed you from there. Therefore, I am commanding you to do this thing. When you reap your harvest in your field and have forgotten a sheaf in the field, you shall not go back to get it. It shall be for the alien, for the orphan, and for the widows, in order that the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hands. When you beat your olive tree, you shall not go over the boughs again. It shall be for the alien, for the orphan, and for the widow. Now, I think I just want to see if I can show you this picture of what it means to beat the olive trees. I don't know whether, yeah, okay, here it is. Are you able to see the picture?
Little small.
Yeah.
Small.
This is basically taking sticks and plucking the olives. So you hit the tree hard with the sticks, so the olives fall down. So what they are saying, what the word is saying is that you don't have to go a second time on the same branch. Once only hit the branch and leave the second time for the poor. So that's what it is. Yeah. So when you beat your olive tree, you shall not go over the boughs, which is the branches again, and it shall be for the alien, for the orphan, and for the widow. When you gather the grapes of your vineyard, you shall not go over it again. It shall be for the alien, for the orphan, and for the widow. You shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt. Therefore, I am commanding you to do this thing. Therefore, I am commanding you to do this thing. Yeah. Now, I think one of the things that we should also remember, the ground for giving justice to the alien or the orphan or the widow is the fact that each of them is made in the image of God. That we should not, it's not because they are helpless, we have to help them. The main thing is that they are, each of them, even if it's an alien from another country, he is made in the image of God. And that's what is important. So anyway, you've read this passage. Now, anything stands out to you? Anything from this passage that really strikes you from this passage as you read it? Anything strikes you from this passage? Anything struck you? Anything you find interesting from this passage?
Verse 19, it is mentioned that when you reap your harvest in your field and have forgotten a sheaf in the field, you shall not go back to get it. Correct. It shall be for the alien, for the orphan, and for the widow, in order that the Lord your God may bless you in all the works of your hand. Correct. So, it is like expected of us to, like, how do we translate that in our life? Like this,
yes.
How to go about doing this is what I want to ask.
Okay, that's a good question. Anybody wants to answer? How do you translate that into our life today? Anybody wants to answer that?
In our life means
today's time.
Today's time.
Yeah.
That means, Pastor, if we are going to do anything with the poor people, means while doing anything, even maid servant, we should not hard words for her to them to do work more and more. And if anything happened, we have to excuse. Even in the market also, we are going to buy something, but the poor people we have to not bargain with them.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah, very good. That's a good point, Mrs. Jacob. Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
Same way, Pastor. In Mumbai, maid servants, Pastor, they don't have chutti, weekly off.
Correct.
Like that, small things.
Yes, that's a very good answer. Yeah, very good answer. Excellent application. Yeah. Anyone else wants to answer, elaborate on what Miss Mary asked or Mrs. Jacob answered? How do you apply this to today's life living? That's a very good question, actually. Yeah. Okay. No, okay, fine. I would just say that I think one of the easiest thing to do about leaving things behind is leaving some tip in the, when you eat in the hotel, you leave some tip graciously. I think even as we always want to sell all the raddi and everything, old stuff, you can just give it away to people. Yeah, people, and because I think most Mumbaikar mentality is like you want to take the entire juice out of the fruit. You want to suck everything dry. So things like this we can be gracious about. I think because a lot of times we have this thinking that that no, other people are taking advantage and all that. Now, one thing we also need to understand is that in this particular system, there was no such thing as a civic government. Now we pay income tax, and of course the government is supposed to take care of the poor, and so people who don't want to help the poor, saying government should do it, also to some extent are justified. But we also know that the system doesn't work. There's a lot of corruption, and so people are poor. So if we do feel needy, yes, we can. In some ways, I think taking small things like a chain from the rickshaw wala, taxi wala, you can just give it up, and so in whatever way the Lord gives you grace, you can, instead of cutting the margins and taking away everything that belongs to you, you can learn to leave it for the poor people. Yeah. So that's just something. And maybe there is more to it. So we should meditate on this and actually even type on the WhatsApp group later on as a minute. How can this apply to today's situation? All right. Yeah. Okay. Now, who are the vulnerable today? Who are the vulnerable today? Who are the group of the poor, the oppressed, the marginalized, the aliens in today's time? Any thoughts on that?
Middle class people.
Middle class people are vulnerable?
Yes.
Are you sure, Miss? Okay, middle class people are vulnerable. Okay.
I think even if you look at the caste system in India, like even now you have, people mostly from the upper strata, always trying to, So those who are like, those who got education much 1,000 years later, so they are still way behind. So I believe, they are the vulnerables, right?
Who's way behind, you're saying?
We had this caste system in India right from the for so long. So the ones who got education,
correct.
The backward classes, they got education much later.
Yes. So they still need that support. Yeah, they still.
Yes, they are the vulnerable group.
Okay.
And it's nice to see some the church, they have picked it up and they're
Correct. Yeah. I think, any other thoughts on this question? Who are the vulnerable in today's time? Who are the vulnerable? Yeah.
Tribes also, Pastor.
Pardon?
Tribes.
Tribes. Okay. Yes. I think we definitely know. I think even now in the news, there was something about Jammu and Kashmir and how the trees were being, the apple trees were being, and people were being displaced. Although we don't know much, but there have been cases where government, all kinds of government, they connive with corporate politicians and they displace people so they can use the natural resources. So that also is a thing. I think one of the things,
even the foreigners, like they are also in some ways strange.
Yes, aliens are very, very true. I think we remember as a church, we really tried to support the Nigerians when they came early, and at that time, churches were unwilling to take them in also. And it is good that we were at least to some extent did that, even when there was some problem with the police and all that. On behalf of the church, I went and tried to at least be there in some ways. But of course, we don't know what are the dark secrets. But aliens are aliens. Aliens are completely helpless because they're in a completely different country. And the language is a barrier. They don't have anyone. And so that is a very, very important this.
At present, now farmers, Pastor.
Yeah, farmers are excellent. Farmers, so that's a good thinking mind where we are able to relate the word of God with the current time. So farmers are a vulnerable group.
I think even children, I think to a
Children,
large
yes. I think even the prostitutes in the COVID time are a vulnerable group because they were not having customers going there, and so they were also dying. That was their business. And so these are groups that are not noticeable. Prostitutes, eunuchs, these are not noticeable. Nobody wants to talk about them. Yeah, of course. And we saw daily wage laborers who suffered so much, in the COVID times when it was intense. So these are some vulnerable groups. Yeah. And of course, then there are also people who could be in our neighborhood itself, who might look rich on the outside, but are actually going through a very, very tough time. And that is where I guess our God has placed us to be sensitive, to be his eyes and to be his ears and to be his hands and his feet to reach out. Yes. Okay. All right. Any further thoughts? Yeah. Okay. We go to the next question. Again, taking a look at the passage. Okay. Have a look at the passage. And we go to the next question. Okay. How does recognizing that you have also been redeemed by Jesus impacts how you think about yourself and others? How does knowing that you have been saved by Jesus, knowing that you have been delivered by Jesus, not only from sin, but also from your difficult times in the past, how should that make you think about yourself and others? That's also a very good question. I think it comes from this verse where it says, verse 18, you shall remember that you were a slave in Egypt and that the Lord your God redeemed you from there. Therefore, I'm commanding you to do this thing. Yeah. So how does recognizing that you have also been redeemed by Jesus impact how you think about yourself and others? Yes. Any reaction to that?
No, the question could not read. I could not read the question properly.
Okay. I'll put it for you. Okay. Can you read it now?
Also been redeemed by Jesus impact how you think about yourself and others. How does recognize that you have also been redeemed by Jesus impact?
Yeah. You understood? Did you understand the question?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So now, how should that cause us to see ourselves and others now? Yeah. The fact that we were also under Egypt, like in a way, in a dark place, and God has delivered us.
Yeah.
We were poor. We were under oppressive structures of the society, but God has brought us in a good place now. How should that cause us to look at ourselves and others? Yes. Anything?
We were in the bondage mist, like in sin, in dark world. Nah? We were like slaves to sin.
Yes.
Satan. But Jesus brought us out after we were transformed, or we came to know Jesus. We are also now come out of that. He has redeemed us from that situation and brought us as his people, as Jesus said. And even all those others also that who have the believers who have known Christ, known this thing, Christ has redeemed them also from that.
Okay.
So we don't have to be in the bondage now, like how Israelites were in the bondage, slavery,
Yeah.
and he brought them out.
Correct.
So
Correct.
we are not real slaves in the body, but we were slaves in sin.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Yes. Any other answer to that question?
I think somehow whatever we do, it is like we do much more than others. Like it can be very simple thing also, but somehow that is ingrained in us. Like I'm not trying to boast about myself, but I've often seen, like now that we're having online classes. Today we were supposed to meet, a student who's just he's a new admission. So
Okay.
all the teachers were there. We were all speaking to the parents, and their cameras are all switched off. So they all spoke and they left. When they left, I immediately put on my camera and then I started. They were so happy. I could have also just left, I have my own lot of work to do at my end, but it was like 3:30 in the afternoon. But you want to take that one more step for for the other person. That comes because we have experienced the love of God
Correct. Yes.
that way. So it happens with all of us. We do,
Yeah.
do that, like in a way. Yeah. I think that is an expression.
Okay. Yes. Yes. Okay. Anything else? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I think one thing we should not forget is that this verse, the verse about that you yourself were aliens in the land of Egypt, and God has brought you out. You were oppressed, and God has brought you out. And so that is what is at the root of this reflection. That God has delivered you. God has provided for you. And so what that means is you should be humble and you should be grateful and you should have a heart for other people who are like you now suffering, and you should reach out to them. That is very important, because if you saw in that cartoon film that those who were poor and oppressed, when they become rich and powerful, they also oppress other people. That is very good. हम बोलते ना, अरे इसका तो दिन बदल गया तो इसके तो रंग भी बदल गए. पहला गरीब था तो मिडिल क्लास था तो अच्छा था, अभी देखो कितना प्राउड हो गया. And that happens. We are like that. We act as if we are very this, and we lose that integrity, that humbleness, and that's very, very important. We should not forget where we have come from where God picked us up. And that applies not just to sin as we understand it, but also applies to economic situation, oppression, being victims of injustice. So that, I think there are people who become rich and they think they have become rich on their own terms, and that's why they become very proud and this. But there are those who become rich and they become even more humble and more grateful, and they feel God has done this, and I want to share this. So that, I think, is something to remember. So that should cause us to look at ourselves as, I'm so blessed by God, I'm so grateful, and then look at others as, now God, I have been comforted, so I can comfort them. I've been blessed that I can be God's hands and feet. So those are the people, that's how we should look at other people. Okay, let's go to the next.
Pastor, I just wanted to add one thing here. There are some people who are in the middle of this. Like they feel like they have, struggled so much on their own. And so that makes them very, not wanting to give or, this way. That makes them.
You mean the victim mindset, or selfishness. That is again a part of selfishness, correct? That is again a part of, because even the poor person can help another poor.
Mm-hmm.
The widow at Zarephath, she had only this much, and she still gave what she had. So graciousness, being blessed by God, has really nothing to do with how much we have. It actually means with the heart to help. Even a poor person can be grateful to God and share his one bread to other person that way. So I think this middle group doesn't exist actually. It is just those who are grateful to God and those who are not grateful to God.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Can we go to the next one? Yeah. Okay. Let's look at Isaiah 58. I think this is a passage on true fasting. I'll read it quickly so we can rush through it. Isaiah 58 verses 1 to 14. Cry loudly, do not hold back. Raise your voice like a trumpet and declare to my people their transgressions, and to the house of Jacob their sins. Yet they seek me day by day and delight to know my ways. As a nation that has done righteousness and has not forsaken the ordinance of their God, they ask me for just decisions. They delight in the nearness of God. Why have we fasted and you do not see? Why have we humbled ourselves and you do not notice? Behold, on the day of your fast, you find your desire and drive hard all your workers. Behold, you fast for contention and strife, and to strike with a wicked fist. You do not fast like you do today to make your voice heard on high. Is it a fast like this which I choose a day for a man to humble himself? Is it for bowing one's head like a reed and for spreading out sackcloth and ashes as a bed? Will you call this a fast, even an acceptable day to the Lord? Is this not the fast which I choose to loosen the bonds of wickedness, to undo the bands of the yoke, and to let the oppressed go free and break every yoke? Is it not to divide your bread with the hungry and bring the homeless poor into the house? When you see the naked, to cover him and not to hide yourself from your flesh, then your light will break out like the dawn, and your recovery will speedily spring forth, and your righteousness will go before you. The glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. Then you will call, and the Lord will answer. You will cry, and he will say, Here I am. If you remove the yoke from your midst, the pointing of the finger and spreading wickedness, and if you give yourself to the hungry and satisfy the desire of the afflicted, then your light will rise in darkness, and your gloom will become like midday. And the Lord will continually guide you and satisfy your strength in scorched places and give strength to your bones, and you will be like a watered garden and like a spring of water whose waters do not fail. Those from among you will rebuild the ancient ruins, and you will raise up the age-old foundations, and you will be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of the streets in which to dwell. If because of the Sabbath you turn your foot from doing your own pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath and delight the holy day of the Lord honorable, and honor it, desisting from your own ways, from seeking your own pleasure and speaking your own word, then you will take delight in the Lord, and I will make you ride on the heights of the earth, and I will feed you with the heritage of Jacob your father, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken. Okay? Now, did anything in this passage surprise you? Did anything in this passage surprise you? Anything that has surprised you? Okay. Anything that has surprised you? Yeah. Now, I think if you are not responding, let me just point out in verse 5. Is it a fast like this which I choose a day for a man to humble? Is it for bowing one's head like a reed and for spreading out sackcloth and ashes as a bed? Will you call this a fast, even acceptable to the Lord? Is this not the fast which I choose? Yeah, to loosen the bonds of the wicked, to undo the bonds of the, and let the oppressed go free. Now, look at the comparison in verse 5 and verse 6. Verse 5 talks about our fast as we normally spend it. You know, we bow our heads like a reed. We spend time, we sackcloth, we do all this prayer and drama. And I mean, he's talking about the religiosity of that time without any social justice, without any sense of responsibility for the poor and the oppressed. Now, here it shows that fasting, as we normally understand it, is if you look at it from the Old Testament perspective, it's today fasting has a lot to do with your personal cleansing and your personal improvement. But in the Old Testament, it has got nothing to do it has not got so much to do with that as it has got God places importance on helping the poor and the oppressed. And I think that is surprising. That is very amazing, and sure that Bible is so broad-minded that even thousands of years back, it was so broad-minded that it can even shock us today, our understanding. It can challenge our understanding of spirituality and fasting and praying. Yeah, that's my observation. Anything you want to add or say or disagree? Yeah, because today Christianity is it has become all about our personal piety, about just concentrating on your personal holiness, and you basically close your eyes to everything that is happening around you. But that's not how the Bible actually describes Christianity. Yeah, it has to do with how we respond to people injustice in the society.
My
Okay,
opinion,
I
Pastor,
think yes.
yeah,
my opinion is that
yeah,
fasting is not a
Yeah.
wrong, but you
yeah,
do fasting, but
yes,
don't feel proud.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Ah,
fasting. I'm means like bhakt, like very.
Oil,
yeah, yeah,
Not,
oil and all that. Huh.
yeah, yeah.
you
I
should
think,
not behave proud.
yeah, okay,
We are fasting, but we are ignoring the our duties. Means what
correct.
helping
Yes,
the
yes,
poor,
yeah,
like that. Then,
okay,
if you fasting also, you do these jobs.
correct.
Then it
Yeah,
is fruitful. Like
yeah.
that.
So I think there is a narrow view of fasting, which is
Hmm.
wrong, and we should have a broader view of fasting.
Hmm.
Broader view of what it means to actually be a spiritual person, to be a disciple of Christ. Not just about personal, oh Lord, take away my anger and take, and our
No.
whole focus is on that only.
Hmm.
But there is also so much to that, and that I think is shocking today. So many Christians today have absolutely no regard for social responsibility that way. So thank you. Yeah. Okay, next question. In what ways do we sometimes focus on external practices rather than what matters most to God? In what way do we focus sometimes on external practices rather than what matters most to God? Now, I think this again refers to verse 5, where it says putting your head down and like a reed and tearing your sackcloth and all. These are all external practices that used to happen. So even today, what are some of the external practices that we focus upon more than what matters to God? Yes.
From the passage itself, that Isaiah passage, this answer, the
What is the relevance of that today? That was in what are some of the external practices that we focus upon rather than what really matters to God?
Yeah, God doesn't say that I told you to do this thing, like put on the ashes and wear sackcloth and all. He says that what I call a fast? That that is the but what he says is this the what kind of a fasting we should have.
Yeah,
Lose that you must see to that injustice is not done
correct.
to oppressed people
Yes,
and unite the cause of the yoke
yes,
and to set the oppressed free. Let them also have their freedom and let them also have their own
yes,
share of whatever they require. So
correct.
this is not important that you are just showing that I'm a Christian or I'm praying to God and I bow down and all. That is not the one what God wants us to do. That's not the only
Yes,
one
yes,
what God wants us to do.
correct, correct.
That
Yeah. Thank.
responsibility is there towards the others, towards the oppressed class.
Yes, 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 correct. Yeah,
Break those all those this
yes,
that we are rich and they are poor, or we are very holy, prayerful, and they are not.
yeah, correct. Yeah, yeah, yes. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, yes, I think one of the things also we see is in this COVID time when coronavirus came in and everybody was so scared, there were churches organizing fasting and prayer because the end time was near, wrath of God was upon them, and everybody was about preparing themselves spiritually.
Yes, yes.
But hardly any Christians stepped out on the road to help the daily wage laborers of poor people.
Did some people are dead, but
No. In terms
no.
of Christian response was very poor. Not as much as it should have been. In
Yeah.
comparison to other communities like the Sikh community, Christian response, hardly any churches had a program or an activity of running. Most of the churches, to my knowledge, were just WhatsApp and all. They were calling speaker to explain what was happening, And what is God trying to tell us? And then they were fasting and praying, and people was somebody was trying to tell me, see, all pastors are fasting continuously, so I should also fast continuously in this time. So that's I think that's the kind of wrong focus, where there's an external religiosity still in focus, then actually responding to the victims of that. That's just one thought that came to my mind. Yes,
We
so
should not replace the fasting in the place of helping the people. We can
yeah.
do fasting, but
Yeah, no, this is not particularly about fasting. It's about any activity
any activity.
that is for ourselves. Just like prayer, going to church and all, worshipping God, reading the Bible, where we are just doing it for ourselves, but we are not really thinking about other people. Yeah, that's what. Okay, all right. Let's go. Now, in what ways? Okay, that's it. What injustice grieves you the most right now? What do you think God thinks and feels about this? Okay, so there are two questions here. What is the injustice that is really grieving you right now, that your heart is breaking when you think about it? And what do you think God thinks and feels about this? Okay. What injustice? Yeah, I don't think we need to look at the text for this. Right now, any injustice, right, that is coming to your attention, grave injustice, and what do you think God feels about this? Any response?
Injustice nowadays, so much going on, Pastor, in the society. See, right now, farmers.
Yes, definitely
Injustice is
farmers.
going
Yes,
on.
that's true. Yeah.
But that feeling is, we are feeling, Pastor, nowadays, means in front of power, nobody do anything. You can't. Only God, mighty power. Even see, Arun, that news.
Arnab Goswami.
Goswami Arun. Oh, he got
Bail.
relief.
Yeah.
But Spain, Swami.
Yeah, Stan. Yeah,
Stan.
yeah,
I mean, the
other
concept
activists.
is not fair. Same.
I think
He's
that's
old
really sad.
and
Yeah,
health
very
is
sad.
not well. Then how we are thinking, Pastor? How can we
Yes.
expecting means hope in on the government or our leaders, whatever it may be going on very wrong? We are thinking means look, even right people are going to into the jail.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and wrong
Correct.
people are outside. They are roaming like
Yes.
anything.
Yeah,
Pastor,
correct.
That
Carry on, Mrs. Raghunath. Thank you. God bless you. Take care. Yeah.
Thank you, Pastor.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So yes. So I think that's a very good observation. Yes, definitely. I think the farmers' protest is definitely something right now, and of course we see some real people with political connections are having it easy and all that. And I'm quite concerned about the farmers, out in the cold. When I think about it now, that there so many have died actually right there in the protest because of the cold.
Yeah,
And they are
really horrible.
yeah, so many they are very old and elderly people, and instead of really showing support, they are being accused of anti-national and all that, and it's just so sad for me. And I think God's heart also is breaking and weeping when he sees this.
Sometimes it comes in my mind, Pastor. Maybe in Bible we are reading Esther time. Before becoming a queen, they suffer a lot. Mordecai becoming main person, he also until death he came.
Correct.
Then that's why that hope is there, but that's all.
Correct.
Whatever this is happening, but God is there. He will do justice. That hope is there.
Yeah. Like how God, saw the Israelites. It's like Israelites suffered for many years under the Egyptians, I think. But it was this generation when Moses was there that God came to their rescue. That means God keeps seeing all that injustice going on, but we don't know which part of the in history that He chooses to rescue.
Okay.
Means after all this, some great thing going to happen, like that feeling, Pastor.
Yeah.
That hope is there.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, definitely God will bring justice. Yeah. Let's move ahead. Next passage is James chapter 1, verse 26 to 2 to 5. I think we are going a little over time for 1 hour because we all joined very late, some of us, and so we had to keep waiting for 10 minutes or so. Okay, if anyone thinks himself to be religious and yet does not bridle his tongue but deceives his own heart, this man's religious is worthless. Pure and undefiled religion in the sight of a God and Father is this: to visit orphans and widows in their distress, keep oneself unstained by the world. My brethren, do not hold your faith in our glorious Lord Jesus Christ with an attitude of personal favoritism. For if a man comes into your assembly with a gold ring and dressed in fine clothes, and there also comes in a poor man in dirty clothes, and you pay special attention to the one who is wearing the fine clothes and say, you sit here in a good place, and you say to the poor man, you stand over there or sit down by my footstool. Have you not made distinctions among yourself and become judges with evil motives? Listen, my beloved brethren, did not God choose the poor of this world to be rich in faith and heirs of the kingdom which he promised to those who love him? Yeah. So this is where again favoritism and all of that is there, in true religion. Now, who around you might need support in this crisis? And maybe this is a personal question for us to reflect upon among our circle of friends or people, society, or even church. Is there somebody who might have gone through crisis, which would mean that somebody has lost their job in this time, somebody has faced a big financial crisis, and what can we do to, maybe how can you on a personal level respond to that, and I think it doesn't mean we can take away their entire problem. We can't just give them a new job, but in whatever way we can respond, we can do something, maybe a bag of groceries, as Tim Mackey was suggesting, visiting them, checking on them, how they are doing, even calling them and comforting them could be some of the things. Yeah, of course, but James talks about practical things, so that's also one thing. Yeah, so do think about that. Yeah, if you can. And the next question is, where do you find hope? This is the last question. Where do you find hope when there's injustice in and around us? Where do you find hope when there's injustice in and around us? Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think correct. Yeah, I think for me, I think for us, it would be just us just groaning and saying, Jesus, come soon. Jesus, come back very soon and take away this injustice, because we feel so powerless. Yeah. So looking at Christ and I think when this injustice, But of course, it doesn't mean that we don't do our part, or we don't challenge other Christians and churches to do what is expected of them to do. That means we are also part of this hope. Yeah. Where do you find hope? We find it in Jesus, second coming of Christ. But we are also extension. We are also part of Jesus. We are also the messengers of the second coming of Christ. So we should also try to bring restorative justice around us. So we have to also, to some ways, answer the question that we ourselves are raising. And how can we bring hope? Okay. All right. So, and I think then, what do you think the Christian response should be regarding the farmers' protest that is going on? Maybe a question for us to think about and meditate on.
We can help them in financially, and also if we are nearby them, we can physically also.
Food supply and all that. Yeah, I think. Definitely, I think they are supposed to be, I think they are quite well supplied because they are prosperous farmers. But the question is for people.
Even the pastor, our part.
Yeah.
we are doing
Correct.
like that.
Yeah, no, the question is not about what kind of, it is not about supplying their need. The question is here is, what is our position in comparison? Because many Christians say that Jesus will come and take away all this problem. We don't have to get involved.
We are instrument of Jesus.
Yes, correct. So I think the same thing about this scope. Yeah. Yeah, I think Sano's mic is on. I'm getting an echo. Yes. So I think that's something, of course, to think about. Also, we have to pray for them in whatever way, extend support by discussing with people, and yeah, because we are so far away. And yes, of course, as Mrs. Jacob said, physically, if we are close, in whatever way we can extend support. So yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I think any other thoughts in the closing? Anybody wants to share before we close? Please feel free to share. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So I think it's a very, very interesting subject.
Right now, this movement went on so this thing, but in Vidarbha region, when all of this did not take that scale. It may be probably because of the COVID, this got more attention. Otherwise, you see in Maharashtra, this part of Vidarbha, there was so many like they're getting debt and they're not able to repay the debt. So when they die, they commit suicide, and then the family gets the 1 lakh, 2 lakhs. That is what is happening now. They are willing to die also.
Yeah, they are purposely committing suicide also for that. That's so sad. Yeah. I think that's true. Again, it all depends. Also, the media will focus on something and then we start thinking about it. But there are so many things that is not focused that are already there. I think people who work among farmers say that so many farmers are regularly committing suicide. And we don't even think about them. Yeah.
Even that sick people not doing in that way. Their mentality is not like that. But my fear is, Pastor, this opposition party means who are opposing the farmer